Happy Heritage Month. My name is Jennifer Kim. I'm the Associate Administrator for the Office of Field Operations at the U.S. Small Business Administration. Not only is it a NHPI Heritage Month, but is also a National Small Business Week. So I am a little tired this week, but very excited to be here celebrating with you all, and particularly in this breakout session. Administrator Isabella Casillas Guzman, who leads the agency, she likes to say small businesses are giants in the American economy. They create 2/3 of net new jobs, provide 40% of all private jobs, 2/3 of net new jobs, and provide 40% of America's economic productivity. And, really, I think one of the reasons I was excited to go work at the U.S. Small Business Administration is because I really thought about all the kind of courageous small business owners in my community. I grew up in a place where not a lot of people look like me, and in order to feel connection to my Korean heritage, we had to drive 30 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe a couple hours to find that Korean grocery store or the restaurant or whatever it is. And that is, I think those small business owners played a really important part in my life. So I'm happy to be here to celebrate small business owners and celebrate the month. So today we're going to be talking about resiliency. I think everybody knows during the pandemic, our community went through a lot in addition to everything else that everybody was going through. I remember on March 12th, 2020, I was in New York City having lunch at, her name is Han, in case anybody's been to that restaurant. And it was March 12th, it was the day, a few days before lockdown actually, but kind of COVID fear had already started to spread throughout the city, and I used to go to that spot for lunch, and you'd go there at noon, and there'd be a line out the door, and you'd have to wait. But the day that I went there, March 12th, there was nobody there. It was my friend and one other person, or one other party, and I kind of thought to myself, this is pretty strange, and maybe this is a bad sign for our community. So I'm happy to be here 3 years later to celebrate our resilience and to talk with folks from the community today on this panel about our strength and how we are resilient in the face of adversity. So I'm going to very quickly introduce our panelists. They'll talk a little bit more as we go through the questions. But we have Christy Inavong, founder of Tuk Tuk Box. Helen Nguyen from Saigon Social, founder and chef. Shanti Segra Asher from the City and County of Honolulu. And Louisa Blue, who a commissioner on the President's Advisory Council for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. So I just want to start and have everybody just share a little bit about yourself and how you got into the line of work that you are in. So we'll start to my left here with Christy. And I think we're sharing the microphone.
Sure. Good morning, Sabaidi, everyone. My name is Christy Inavong, originally from Seattle, Washington, by way of Laos. So my parents are refugees from Laos and escaped on a banana tree trunk crossing the Mekong River. So that was kind of my narrative growing up, but always wanted to go back and always had the heart for service. And I've kind of given myself the label hustler and humanitarian because I've always had 12 jobs and always volunteering, and anything I do, I try to do with intention, but really giving back to the community. So I have 2 businesses. One is a nonprofit called Courageous Kitchen, and then the other is Tuk Tuk Box, which I'll share more about. Thank you.
My name is Helen Nguyen, and I am originally from Seattle, born in California, family's from Vietnam. So back in 2016, I decided to take a semi-sabbatical to go to New York to attend culinary school. The intention was to stay for about 11 months, the duration of the program, and then go back to resume work. I was a real estate broker for about 15 years prior to moving to New York. And towards the end of the program, I completely fell in love with the city, the energy, the hospitality industry, and decided to stay and open up a restaurant. During the time, there was a few modern restaurants Vietnamese restaurants that had opened and were becoming wildly successful, and I thought that it was a real a resurgence in the Vietnamese culinary scene in New York, and I really was inspired to stay to be a part of it. And so then I guess I'll speak about this a little bit later, but I decided to stay and open a restaurant in the midst of a pandemic. Good morning, aloha. I'm Shante. I am I actually represent the city and county of Honolulu here because during COVID, as the pandemic swept the U.S. continent and including Hawaii especially, there were a lot of challenges for the Pacific Islander community and also Native Hawaiians. So my position was created during that time. Our office got stood up as a response to COVID. I do work with a lot of small businesses in Hawaii who were needing relief and support to their small businesses so that they can stay afloat. But a little bit about myself. I am a local island born from the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia. I grew up in the state of Kosrae, so I am Pacific Islander loud and proud. I'm so happy to see other Pacific Islander fellows here. I am a mother of 3 daughters, and I am the oldest of 7. So in the Pacific Islander community, our biggest wealth is family. And so during the pandemic, that was the biggest challenge that we faced. The main communication was together, and we had to stop that so that we're not spreading COVID. And so this position really got stood up in response to the different uniqueness that Pacific Islander businesses and also the communities were facing during that time. Thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor to share this space with all of you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Louisa Blue with the blue hair. It was a bonding thing with my granddaughter. We both got our hair dyed at the same time, but hers is red. But anyway, so I am a member of the White House Advisory Commission on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. And you may ask, why are you on this panel? Because my background is in labor. I was an international executive VP of the Service Employees International Union, the highest ranking Asian Pacific Islander in a labor leadership position. And my job during the 4 years of Trump was to create and establish AAPI Civic Engagement and Leadership Program. And my job was to connect with community groups in different parts of the country and get them activated in the electoral process. My background is I used to be a registered nurse many, many moons ago at San Francisco General, where I became involved with the union there because the staffing was horrible. Okay, it was just really bad. And San Francisco General was the trauma center. So we took care of the sickest people in the city and county of San Francisco. Anybody who got shot, run over, stabbed, overdosed, they came to San Francisco General. So it was a great training program for registered nurses and also physicians, right? But the registered nurses, because they could find better paying jobs, elsewhere in the private sector, would leave after 6 months of training. And so that's how I got involved with my union, that I saw that it was a constant revolving door and that they were going to continue to see that unless the hospital and the county was more competitive with the private sector, hospitals who could pay more. So that's how I got involved and eventually became president of that local. And then we were also the center of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and I was president during that time. And the lack of response from many in the medical field was just shocking, because we received all of those patients before HIV was even discovered. And then we had doctors and other healthcare professionals that didn't want to provide care because that person looked gay, right? And I was president at the time, and so there was pressure on me, like, what are you going to do about this, Louisa? This is not right. And I said, well, you know what? We took an oath. We took our training, we were educated to take care of anybody who walks through that door. And it shouldn't matter what color they are, what language they speak, and what kind of medical illness they had. And so I'm proud to say that out of that came the issue of short staffing. And so I led the campaign in California to establish nurse-to-patient ratios in the law in California, and we continue to be the only state that has those nursing ratios. So I hope to be able to share my experience as a labor leader for over 40 years, but to talk about the connection between workers and sustaining small businesses, right? Because you can't survive unless you have employees, and you have to take care of your employees also. And small businesses, especially Asian small businesses, you deserve a seat at the table. Based on, you heard the stats, you deserve a seat at the table, right? Because you provide a lot, and you've helped build this country, right? And we have a history as Asian Pacific Islanders that we have built this country from way back, right? So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Louisa, and thank you for being such a strong leader for our community over many years. And yes, as Louisa mentioned, not only do our small businesses such giants in the economy, NHPI businesses actually make up about 40% of all minority-owned businesses. So we are out there, and feel lucky to be on a panel of such rock star women leaders, all women, this morning. So wanted to get started and ask my first question to Christy and Helen. So from a business owner perspective, how did you sustain yourself during the pandemic, and how did you, tackle challenges as they came up?
Well, crazily enough, we actually started during the pandemic. It was like, I guess I'm bored, time to do something else as a serial entrepreneur, not wanting to rest and always having multiple ideas. And so, as I mentioned, my nonprofit, Courageous Kitchen, we're a social impact based in Bangkok, Thailand. We are serving thousands of refugee and asylum seeker families, mostly doing nutrition aid, culinary training, and intermediary services. So we kind of help with pathway to citizenship and then do the culinary training. But because of COVID, we had to shut down. There were no more tourists in Bangkok. And I started sending out like snack boxes and meal kits to past clients and friends in the US. They'd said, we still want to cook, we still want to support. And so that was kind of the impetus for Tuk Tuk Box. So Tuk Tuk Box is the first Southeast Asian subscription box on the US market. And essentially you go like how you would subscribe to HelloFresh, and you pick a snack box and you pick a funk level. We want to embrace the funkiness of our food and kind of take back that narrative. And so you get Little Funky, Funky Fresh, or Funkylicious, which is like durian paste, right? And so we started sending these out to friends, and I was like, I can't afford to keep doing this. And so turned it into a subscription box model. And it did really well during the pandemic because people couldn't leave their house, right? People still wanted access to these snacks. Somebody in the middle of like Kansas who couldn't get access to these Southeast Asian goods. And unfortunately, with a supply chain, things would get stuck on ships, in Thailand, and they would, by the time they would arrive to us, it would be expired. So really sustaining it was a bit difficult. We thankfully got an SBA loan, a National ACE grant, received a U.S. Julia Taft grant. And so kind of some of these smaller grants have helped us sustain ourselves, and we don't really know where we're headed to next.
So a little background about Saigon Social. We started as a pop-up for 2 years. I signed a lease in 2019, and about a month into the lease, I discovered that we had to bring a new gas line in. So we had to dig a trench and build a whole new gas line into the business, and that was about 11 months of sitting on the property with no heat, no gas, no hot water. We were essentially heating up water on induction burners just to wash dishes. Finally got gas services turned on, and we're pushing for an opening of March 13th. and really enjoyed 10 days, maybe like 11 days of hot water, heat, and appliances, and the city shut down. So we had to let go of all the employees, and it was just very difficult as a first-time business owner, and it just felt like, that first 3 years of finally getting to see the light. And we had partners that were on board, present in New York, getting ready to assist with the opening, but they had to go back to the West Coast to attend to their families because nobody really knew what was going on. So I was left in the restaurant alone, just trying to navigate how to do business, and we're sitting on so much inventory. So what I decided to do was just open up our takeout window and was essentially just cooking every single day. And for the pop-up, we didn't really have a budget for marketing, so 95% of our business came from Instagram. So I thought, maybe I'm just gonna post an Instagram post to see if people would come eat. And if not, then I just continue cooking and see where we can just like donate to the community. And to my surprise, a lot of people in the neighborhood, because a lot of businesses were shut down, came to us to pick up meals. And a lot of the meals were, anywhere between $5 to $10. And a lot of people who, would come up to the window and say, is it okay if I pick up a meal for, I have 7 kids at home. We have a community of like 100 elders. Whatever you can't sell, would it be okay if we come and pick it up a little bit later? And we're not getting paid until next week, so can we just, come back and pay for it, at a later time? Of course, whatever it is I was able to give, we were just sitting on like a month worth of inventory. So it became, we became a commissary / community kitchen. And I think about a month into it, we partnered with a few different nonprofits who kind of took us under the wing and said, we would love to help out. We have a budget for just food and for the food and beverage industry, and what we would like to do is essentially give you, let's just say, like a stipend of $6 to $7 per meal, but the caveat is that 70% of that goes back to labor and the other 30% to food. So obviously there wasn't any profit into it, but what that allowed me to do was to bring back a few employees and be able to support them through the first couple of months. Because we were supposed to open in March, we did not qualify for any of the loans that were given to small businesses, so that essentially became our lifeline. In March of 2022, we had an official grand opening. Was incredibly lucky with the support of the community and had a really great New York Times article that helped bring business back into just working as a full-service restaurant, really, because when the city allowed outdoor seating, we had 4 tables outside, and it was still the takeout window. Finally had an opportunity to go full service with the support of the community and the article, and a month and a half later, we had a kitchen fire. So then we had to shut down again for about a month and a half, 2 months, and today is actually the 1-year anniversary of the kitchen fire. And also through the community, we were able to sustain and push through. So when I think about, the operation and just the journey of going through the pandemic, in hindsight, it feels like so much long ago. And right now, though, we're such I guess a core in our local community. Everyone is always constantly saying, we thank you so much for all that you've done, but truly I feel as though the community is what pushed us through the hardship and the reason why we still exist today.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. We were fortunate on Monday. We have our national small business winners from all over the country, brought them in, and they were fortunate to celebrate the start of National Small Business Week in the Rose Garden with President Biden and Vice President Harris. And President Biden likes to say that starting a small business is an act of hope, which I think is very true, but also it's really, you can just hear the perseverance and the grit and the determination from these 2 women. So I just really want to applaud you for that. And yeah. And you 2 are actually just, real in-life examples of, I think, what actually a lot of people did during the pandemic, which is figure out how to adapt and survive and, really pursue your dreams and do something true to you. despite all of the hardship, small business starts and ownership are at record highs right now in the country, even from before the pandemic. In the last 2 years under President Biden, over 10.5 million small businesses have applied for new small business applications. So here's, 1 and 2 here on this panel. Question for Louisa and Shanti down at the end. You each have a very unique perspective, I think, in this picture, and you've really witnessed a lot of how our communities have had to, adapt during the pandemic. So, could you provide a little more insight on what you've seen and your role?
So, SCI, the Service Employees International Union, is the largest healthcare union in the country, and we represent anybody who works in a hospital, including physicians, all the way down to janitors, right? And so during the pandemic, when the pandemic first started, it was hospital workers were the backbone of this country in terms of providing care. And let me just share a little tidbit here. So for the registered nurses, right, lots of Filipino nurses, right, they are 30% of the RN workforce. No, sorry, 4% of the RN workforce, but 30% of COVID-related deaths for registered nurses were Filipino. So let that sink in, right, because that's not a statistic that gets out there. And for the Filipino community, I mean, they really backed each other up if you were a registered nurse, because people were getting sick, right? And so they worked the overtime to cover for the shortage because our patients were in need of that. But then think about that. You spend all day taking care of patients with COVID. You have to go home, and the fear is, am I going to give this virus, to my family, or am I going to catch it, right? You leave the hospital, and now you got to worry about getting beat up, right, because of the anti-racist rhetoric that was out there. So that was very stressful for folks. And then in particular, in terms of trying to hold hospitals accountable, so let me give you one example. So I come out of the San Francisco Bay Area. And my old union, where I started, SEIU Local 10-1, they represented workers at Highland Hospital, which is another trauma center in the San Francisco Bay Area, where the hospital did not have PPEs or enough PPEs. They were told, oh, wear this mask for like a week because we don't have any, masks to give you. They also didn't have gowns. So one of our union members was like, well, you guys don't have gowns, I'm going to improvise, and I'm going to wear a garbage bag because I have to protect myself. That union member got fired because of that, right? It's like, you're not providing the PPEs, hospital administration, nor are you communicating with your staff, and yet you're going to fire this one individual who's trying to protect herself and her family. You're going to fire her because she improvised and you guys couldn't figure out how to improvise? No, that's not right. So they went out on strike for 5 days. And for hospital workers, that is the hardest thing to do because most contracts get settled, believe it or not. Most contracts get settled, right? Nobody wants to go out on strike. And hospital workers, especially registered nurses, they don't want to take that step. But things were so bad because of the lack of response of the hospital administration, they voted for a strike and they walked out for 5 days. That is unheard of, right? Especially in the midst of COVID, right? So that was very hard for me, being a former registered nurse. And I remember calling up my international president, Mary Kay Henry. And, President Trump just didn't have a response to it, right? He thought it was just going to go away in the midst of thousands and thousands of people dying because of COVID. And I remember calling her and saying, this man is going to kill our members. We have people dying because he is not responding appropriately. And then my husband, who was a former Air Force person, and he goes, there's a stockpile. I go, what are you talking about? This is even before anybody knew there was a stockpile. He goes, there is a stockpile. Armed services have stockpiles of ventilators, whatever they need in the hospital, and it's a crime that he's not releasing those stockpiles. So part of our job, too, is to hold, elected officials accountable, and that's part of the job of union folks, is they work, and many of them work for, publicly funded employers, right? Whether it's a city, a county, a state, or the federal government. And so our job is to hold them accountable, right? Because we're the front line. They're not, right? And so we have to hold them accountable. And it's a tough job to do, but, that's part of the work that I had to do, is like to organize people, right? And say, hold them accountable, because without you, they can't carry out your work.
Thank you, Louisa. Shanti?
All right, so before I respond to the question, let me give you a very brief background of Pacific Islander, because I serve as a liaison. So Pacific Islanders that are predominantly in Hawaii are Samoans, Tongans, Micronesians, which I represent that ethnicity, and also including Native Hawaiian. And I give you this because we speak data. She cited some type of data in Filipinos in the first responder, that line of work. For the Pacific Islanders, during COVID, we account for 3% of the Hawaii state population. But in positive cases, we were at 30 to 40%. The pandemic attacked this ethnicity bigger than any other ethnicity in Hawaii. And she also mentioned voice. We need to have a voice at the table. Why? Because a lot of the responses during COVID were not culturally and linguistically relevant to the response to COVID. So what did that create? It created this response mechanism that does not address the biggest population that was attacked, that was impacted by COVID. And then you look at, while they were not first responders, they were frontline workers. What does that mean? They were the ones that did not get to work from home. They were working at the gas stations. They were working at the fast food restaurants. So it's a different frontline work, but they were still exposed. So when they go home, very similar to the situation for first responders, they bring whatever they got exposed to home, and their living quarters, they're multi-generational homes. So spreading was not a question. It's gonna spread. And then they say, oh, okay, you need to isolate yourself. We live in Hawaii. The cost of living is so, it's overwhelming to think about. And families only have, maybe some Pacific Islander families, they only have one restroom. So when they talk about isolation, you cannot even let it sink in. What do you mean by isolate yourself? Come visit our home. That's why voice is really important during COVID. So that became, in that resiliency, response, adapting, and equity, this position got created because me not speaking out in our culture, we don't speak out. We listen and we follow. But it was a life and death situation. 30%, many of these people were dying. So we have to step outside of our culture and say something. So when I spoke at a mayor's conference or a speaking session with church leaders, because that is the foundation of our Pacific Islander community, we go through the pastors, the churches. And so when I spoke up, this position got created. It got created to respond to COVID. It was not just for the churches, the community members. It was for everything. Businesses were struggling. And so all the relief efforts that were provided through CARES funding, so we're talking small business recovery grants. If this position was not created, access would not be possible. So I would go to pop-ups and get this information out. I go to gas stations to give the rent and utility assistance program funds. Hawaii, actually, I want to cite this. Over the last 3 years, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program in Honolulu has helped 13,490 Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islander families. That is and 12,021 Asian American families stay safely housed, and that is a total of 156 million in rent and utility relief. So because they were impacted by COVID through unemployment or they got exposed, they were able to get up to 2,500 per month for rent, utility, and other means. And so we say resources must be in culture and language. That's one. But then if it does not become accessible to a minority population, those relief efforts will not provide that positive impact to families. So this role was really created to bridge that communication. One thing before I turn it back to the moderator is that when I spoke earlier about church and being that main communication line to our community members, everything got shut down. That one line of communication was no longer existing. So what we ended up doing was we did one of the first webinars. We went on Zoom and live on Facebook because everyone was home on their Facebook accounts. So we actually transitioned into that, and that's how we ended up getting the word out. We did not let in-person stop that channel, but we created and adapted to Zoom, going streamline on Facebook as the way to communicate resources to our communities. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think, a lot of what we're hearing are, things that we were kind of forced to figure out during the pandemic. But, I really think about what are the things that we did during the pandemic that we can carry forward? What are the best practices? What are the things that actually we kind of force ourselves to do this, but actually these are great things to continue forward into the future. And, even things as basic as, now my dad knows how to use Zoom, and that actually is helpful, right? But even as an agency, the SBA, we're thinking a lot about, how people communicate is different now, how businesses operate is different now. So how can we, adapt our, services to best serve our customers? And I know everybody else on this panel is thinking about that as well. Well, back to Helen and Christy, and we may have time for 1 or 2 questions after this, actually, so get ready if you have a question out there. But I wanted to ask you too, how did you give back during the pandemic? And we heard a little bit about it already, but why did you feel like it was important to do that?
So with the nonprofits that we originally partnered with, the recipients were frontline healthcare workers. And there was a lot of different restaurants and a lot of different businesses that were focusing a lot of their time and resources to the frontline healthcare workers. And in our backyard, specifically Chinatown, even though we're located in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, our neighbors are Chinatown. And during the pandemic, I've met 2 really incredible friends, Moonlin and Yin, who are the co-founders of Heart of Dinner, which is a nonprofit that services the Asian elders in the community. So what started off as just 50 meals a day turned out to this operation of about 200 to 300 meals a day. And what we realized was that there was a lot of government programs that did exist, but it wasn't anything that was really culturally appropriate for our elders. Like, for example, the meal kits and the food that they were getting were grilled cheese sandwiches and canned food. And when you're talking to a 70-year-old grandmother, one, she doesn't know how to open the can. Two, she doesn't have the resources to cook the food herself. And three, they're against all of the dietary restrictions because it's not something that she can really relate to. So what we started doing was cooking meals that they identify with, congee, soups, things that were high in protein, low in fat, low in oil. And from there, there was a lot of different restaurant partners and small businesses that would donate their time and their resources. And as the city, started opening up again, we still stuck together up until this day and still provide these weekly meals and kits and produce and whatever their daily and weekly needs are. We still service them on a weekly basis.
We've been mission-driven from the start, so that means from every sale, at least 10% goes back to Courageous Kitchen, so the refugee asylum-seeking families. And most of that money went toward getting vaccinations. So we're working with about 30,000 people on the Burmese-Thai border, trying to get vaccinations for them, and then providing PPE, and also in-language translations, because in talking about data and kind of my experience working with nonprofit sector, we noticed that Southeast Asians were falling through the cracks. So there was kind of, or is kind of, this monopolization of East Asian communities. And not saying that to, to downplay, but just that it was, oh, you're fine, Asian communities, have higher wealth, higher income, higher education, but not realizing that a lot of Southeast Asians came forcibly. Through ways that my family came here, and a lot of them were in poverty and kind of falling through those cracks. And so one of the ways that we helped was to continue funneling money into the Southeast Asian communities in Thailand, in Burma, and also here in the U.S. And there was this Stop Asian Hate rhetoric, right? And we hear so much about this resilience or resiliency of the Asian community, but I don't want to be resilient, right? I've been forced to be resilient. But all of our stories, or all of our narratives in the media, were negative. And so we wanted to kind of flip that on its head and reframe that into the affirmative. So I created this Spread Asian Joy slogan. And through Spread Asian Joy campaign, we actually became more widely known for that than our snack boxes. And we've been able to raise thousands of dollars for women and victims of Southeast Asian women and victims of domestic violence, and also safety kits for AAPI elders. So that's kind of how we've given back, and actually what we've been known most for was our Spread Asian Joy campaign.
Awesome, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, it's an interesting point you raise, I think, Christy, like when we're forced to be resilient versus when we choose to, of our own making. But it is, I do feel a lot of hope in this moment right now for our community. There's been a lot of, increased visibility, and I hope that continues and even more. This isn't the top. We have, we're still, a long way to go. But, looking around in this room and all the attendance today, I feel really hopeful for the future. So we do have time for a question or two. I think we have a microphone in the back. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Or a couple of microphones in the back. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please raise your hand.
Hi, thank you for your time. My question will be on the sustainability gap and basically how minority communities are going to be affected as time progresses, and basically how sustainability keeps on going, and how clothing agencies and renewable agencies are going to be requiring higher costs, and basically minority communities will not be able to pay back the amounts that are going to be requested. That's my question. Thank you for your time.
Did you want to?
I'm glad you asked that question. As a member of the White House Advisory Commission, the commission members are really great folks. They have a base in their community, they're leaders in their community, but we also learned a lot about government. We're still learning about government. And part of our job is to make sure that we connect with community organizations, because there is money out there, right? The problem is our AA NHPI communities are not knowledgeable of what those services are. And in many cases, sometimes there's no bilingual, translated, information that's available, right? And so I really encourage everybody to really take a look at the reports, the recommendations that the commission has made, because we need your input. And in terms of making sure that AAPI, Native Hawaiians, Micronesians, right, small businesses get access to that, we need to hear that. Because then we can push the envelope and make, people who are in charge of agencies uncomfortable and to hold them accountable. Because we're all taxpayers, and guess who pays their salaries? We do, right? And we have to remind them that all the time. That's what I used to tell my union members who work for local governments, like, you pay for their salaries. They're your bosses, yes, but you got to hold them accountable, right? Because not only are you working with them and carrying out the mission, of the agency or the county or the city, you are also paying their salaries through your taxes, right? And for small businesses, because you are the backbone, and oftentimes small businesses in our communities are started because of language barriers. They can't quite fit in to white America, right? And so it makes it hard, but so they build those small businesses, right, so that they continue to thrive, that they continue to provide needed services and food to our communities, right, and as a place of an employment, right? But, make comments, call me up, complain to me, complain to Kayleen, take a stand there. She's another member of our commission, right, so that we can push the envelope, right? And we have members of the staff from the commission. They'll tell you, Larissa's shaking her head, right? We just push that envelope each and every time. And then I had the privilege of being invited, was it a month ago? Chilling? Yeah. I was invited to speak, at the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, the national leadership. And I'm like, okay, why do you guys, Ben, why do you want me to speak? But it was to give a perspective, on workers, right? And also to hear directly from our small business leaders, about what they face. Because there is money out there, and it's not right that you don't have a seat at the table, right? 40% of the small businesses are run by the AA NHPI community. That's not a small percentage, right? And so you should take that, use that as leverage, and just ask for forgiveness later, right? You got to get angry, right? And I not only tell that to, people within the API community, but also AAPI elected leaders who are struggling, right, to be heard, especially, in state government. I was like, you guys got to stop being nice. Like, get angry. You can always, forgiveness later on, because if you don't get angry, you'll always be invisible. I don't care how many of you are elected to the state legislature, but if you don't coalesce and organize and speak in one voice, right, and just get angry. Make them feel uncomfortable, right? Because everybody else gets angry, and then they respond, right? And that's what we have to do as well. So the rap that I gave to elected officials in the state of California is the same rap that I give to workers who are looking to organize into a union or into an association. You all need a voice, right? You need to make sure that you get paid a decent salary. You need to make sure that you have respect on the job, right? Since you carry out the work of the business or the county or whatever, right? That your work every day is important, and without you, that business can't survive, that county, that hospital, they can't survive unless you are allowed the opportunity to say, this is what needs to happen. So listen to what we have to say. But I encourage all of you is check out the HHS website. hit, White House Advisory Commission on Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, Asian Americans, and take a look at the recommendations that we have submitted already and make sure you comment on that because we do read them, right? And then we'll bring it back to our subcommittees and then raise the issues, right? So do that.
Thank you, Louisa. Oh, did you? You sure?
Just wanted to add, sustainability is what I heard, and one thing that pandemic did was a silver lining was unveiling a lot of one is weaknesses or gaps in the existing system, and two, empowerment. It really empowered a lot of marginalized and underserved communities to stand up for their people. And that is something that we aspire to sustain over time, not just helping nonprofits who were not functioning as 501c3 to become 501c3, but also to ensure that the small businesses that we partnered with during the pandemic are now having a voice through different, at the city and also state, because now there are Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander representation at the table. So it's really providing that vessel so that we sustain the strength that COVID empowered us to find and continue to keep.
Can I add one more thing?
feel
Really quick.
we're the first panel, so if we get off time, it's going to be all our fault. But
Okay.
30
all right.
seconds.
All right. So I don't want folks to be under the impression that I always fought against government and all of that and tried to hold them accountable because I kind of did that. But the labor movement is very white. You don't see people like me in national leadership positions, right? So part of my job within the Service Employees International, because they claim that we represent the largest number of unionized Asian Pacific Islander members, was I would hold them accountable, right? They had to do translation, and I would push for that. You can't show up at this meeting when we have monolingual, Vietnamese speakers, Korean speakers, Chinese speakers. It's like you have to provide translation. And those unions in our family that have large numbers of monolingual or limited English speaking, I go, they better have bilingual staff, they better have bilingual materials, and they better be culturally sensitive, right? So I just wanted to make that clear, right? Because that was my job, right, to also hold unions accountable.
All right, well, I think all of our panelists want to thank them for joining us today, so please give them a round of applause. And hopefully they'll be here throughout the day, so if you have other questions that we weren't able to get to, hopefully they can spend time. But just wanted to thank all of you for joining this panel, and we're going to roll right into the next one, actually, to continue to hear about lessons from different leaders in entrepreneurship. So before I release this panel, I'm just going to introduce our next speaker real quickly. I think that's what I'm supposed to do, which is Chiling Tong, if you want to come up, Chiling. Chiling is the president and CEO of National ACE, which is the National Asian American and Pacific Islander Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship. And I just want to take this moment to, is this guy still on? To publicly thank Chiling for her partnership. So earlier this year, National ACE, the U.S. Small Business Administration, the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders launched a series of regional economic summits that we definitely would not have been able to do without Chiling's support. So I want to thank you. Yeah. And just say that we had, I'm going to forget, we've held forums in Philadelphia, Chicago, Seattle, and New York. Thank you. So far this year, and we are taking a pause to celebrate Heritage Month this year. We'll be back on for more programming later this summer into the fall, so hope to see you in a city near you. With that, please join me in welcoming Chiling Tong. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for leading this powerful panel. Let's give them another round of applause. They're all influencers in their own field. Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate the NHPI Heritage Month with the White House Forum on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders. I especially appreciate all the panelists that share their stories with us. My name is Chilling Tong. I'm the president and CEO of a National Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurships. We represent 2.56 million AAPI business owners, and we have 120 affiliate AAPI chambers and partners throughout the country, and some of them are here with us. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited on behalf of the entire NHPI business community here to highlight the ways that the Biden-Harris administration is advancing economic equity and supporting NHPI community and entrepreneurs. National AIDS is so grateful for all of you here with us. And also, we are so grateful for the good work that administration has done and continues to do in support for ANHPI entrepreneurs, including producing an inaugural national strategy to advance equity, justice, and opportunity for ANHPIs. As Louisa has mentioned that, I hope you'll be able to read that. The national strategy is a groundbreaking for the ANHPI communities. It is the first of its kind address critical policy issues facing ANHPIs, such as data disaggregation, language accessibility, and combating AAPI hate. So this is this conference about. And the theme of the forum today is visibility. 1 in 10 businesses in the US are owned by ANHPIs, and this business collectively create over 5 million jobs. ANHPI makes critical contributions to their communities, local economies, and the country through business. And thank you for all of you and your contribution to our community and to the entire society. So for the past 2 years, we have faced 2 illnesses. One is COVID, another one is anti-API hate. During the past 2 years, there were about 11,000 incidents, and from verbal harassment to physical assault. 1/3 of them happened in a business place. So for this reason and many others, it is vital to amplify the visibility of ANHPIs in policy discussion and foster open dialogues as we strive for an equitable economic recovery. The next panel is about successfully growing and scaling your business. In one of the National AIDS survey, if you check our website, you can see all the survey, nationalaids.org. We find that 44% of ANHPI respondents lack confidence to fund an unplanned 5,000 business expense. So I'm just especially grateful that Helen and Christy are willing to share their story with us. And over half lack of confidence that they could find a marketing campaign, increase payroll, purchase a property or equipment, finance a purchase order or contract, and get a volume discount on the inventory purchase. So all this indicate one thing: majority of our entrepreneurs struggle to access the opportunity, such as access to contracting, access capital, that will help them to make their business to the next level. As Christy mentioned, last year we gave about $6 million grant, and we will host a conference, like a follow-up of this forum in Department of Commerce, May 17th. If you are interested, please check our website, nationalaids.org. So to continue this conversation, it is my pleasure to introduce the next panel, moderate by Andrew Chow, a National AIDS Board of Directors and co-founder and CEO of Boba Guide. I call him Rising Star. Andrew Chow, please.
I think in the interest of time, we're going to ask the panelists coming up to talk a little bit about their experiences as API leaders. So I'm going to ask them to come up and introduce them real quick. Hello? Okay. It's weird to switch mics in the same conversation. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for staying and welcome to those coming in. I want to just thank everybody here from the White House Initiative, also to all the different leaders across the room from different organizations and nonprofits. So thank you for coming. I want to do a quick introduction and get right to it. This panel, for the context, is about how to scale your business, especially in the face of all the stuff that we've been hearing about, from the pandemic to also anti-Asian rhetoric. So I want to first introduce Raji Sankar, Lydia Zhang, and David Zhao. So each of these people, I want to give you guys the forum to talk a little bit about your experience so far, and then I'll come back and do the intros to help get time back.
Oh, is this on? Can you guys hear me? Awesome. My name is Raji Sankar. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm an immigrant story. I grew up in central India, right between Mumbai and Calcutta. If you drew a straight line, I would be right in the center. I grew up in a steel city, a very cosmopolitan Indian town. Got to know people from all parts of India. And I have no business doing what I am doing based on my upbringing. I had conservative grandparents. Everybody wanted me to be a doctor or an engineer, and I did go to school for engineering, and today I run restaurants, and we'll share more about that. Our concept is Chula Indian Barbecue, and we operate out of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, also have an outlet here in Virginia.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lydia Zhang. My family runs and owns the Peter Chan Restaurant Group. My dad is actually here today in the audience. A little bit about myself. Born and raised in China, moved and immigrated to the US in early 2000. Completed high school, went to study abroad, undergrad and grad school in the UK. And then when I joined my family business in 2014, Dad and his partners were opening location number 5. They were really on a successful journey. He figured out a golden ratio of making profits in the restaurant he opened within 6 months. So there was a lot of expectation and responsibility to carry on what had already done in the company. Being the rebellious modern Chinese daughter, modern Chinese American daughter, I think about what I could contribute and add value to the business. Fortunately, I found my way in marketing, PR, and brand building. So now today we are, we opened 14 locations in total, and we have a lot more to come.
Very cool, very cool. Hi, I'm David Zhao, and I am the founding partner of Chubby Cattle International. We have 10 locations of hot pot barbecue concepts across the states. I've been doing this for the past 8 years, and it's been a journey from opening the first location with no background in restaurant space. So no, I know how tough it is to find that golden ratio of profitability in the States. So it's been a journey, and my goal and our company's goal is to elevate the Asian dining experience. I'm an immigrant myself. Coming here, Chinese food was always thought of as Chinese takeout, or Asian food's always cheap. And that tells a lot about how people think of our culture. So we want to showcase that we can elevate that dining experience. So I'm excited to be here today, and thank you all for coming out.
Thanks for the quick introduction. I just wanted to echo back a little bit to the prior panel. We had some great things that were talked about both by Chi-Ling and prior panelists about just how hard it has been during the pandemic. A lot of stuff that we'll talk about very soon. People may or may not know just how disproportionately affected the Asian American small business community was, or in this case, sometimes mid-sized community, mid-sized businesses. And how disproportionately, because of language skills or the ability to have access to capital, which is also affected by language, we as a community had to stick together. The theme of this conference is visible together, and I agree with Luisa, the prior panelist, where we basically have to have a stronger voice to fight for resources, to fight for just the attention of certain companies that give away grants, for the government to listen to us. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So can you each share a little bit about what did you guys do to grow and expand your business? What really helped you, whether it's financial assistance, advisory services, or just anything else that you felt was very helpful in the community?
Hi, I have a little different experience in this process. Obviously, capital is important, marketing is important. What we found is context is very important. So we ended up creating our larger vision, which is to transform the quality of lives of everyone we touch. And that kind of dictated how we would take bold risks, even though it's very fearful and lots of failures along the way. But that's what allowed us on how we put what we put in our menu items, ingredients, how we operate the restaurants, how we deal with people, how can we be more appreciative and have more gratitude for our team in addition to our guests. So everything is dictated by context. Context helps you get through fearful times, and there are many fearful times and many opportunities to fail, especially in the restaurant industry. So that's what we found to be very powerful.
I would like to add, I would say teamwork. It's actually a group of people, the relationship that you're able to build with vendors that we constantly go back to, counting for reliability, with employees who is our constant back support and eventually become our business partner and investors. It's the people like who you can share the same vision with. And for our business, besides the Peter Chan original concept, we also ventured out into more additional original concepts. I agree with what David has mentioned about elevating the experience, about elevating what our heritage represents. The social dynamic, the world's system is evolving constantly, as we know, all learn from COVID. I would say constantly changing and advancing and improving what we could do, and being a whole part of an ecosystem is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of having an advantage in capital or having an advantage as small business owners to make sure we have sustained profitability, I think for the past 10 years, as we've started with our first restaurant in Las Vegas to now having 10 and building another 40 in the next few years, I think I've learned a lot knowing in how this capital markets work. As you scale to a larger size, you actually have more access to capital. So it's definitely very challenging in the beginning as a first-time founder. We didn't generate profit for our restaurant for the first 2-3 years because we didn't have that economy of scale. We didn't own our own warehouses or logistics. We didn't have our own cattle ranch in California where we can lower food costs. So I would say find as much like your assistance. The hardest part is creating the first 2-3 years and getting to profitability. I think the scaling part is a lot more fun for me to spread the concepts and knowing that we can generate profit through the economy scale and through vertical integrations. But the first 2 years is challenging, so find as much help as needed. And for us, during COVID, I think SBA was a huge help for that sense. The PPP loans and all that was significant. So finding help from the community and from the government access programs would be great. That's something that we should work on more as well. But that's something that we learned through COVID is that there are SBA programs out there. You can get loans from banks to start off. You can get equipment financing. Prior to that, we've always built everything on cash. So there is no loans and we take on no leverage. And that's something that I think the Asian community always have done is just put in cash and never understood how to leverage a business. And this is something now we're leveraging via equity and leveraging via debt to scale to the size of, let's say, Chipotle to or Sweetgreens, right? So that's where we want to get to.
Thanks for sharing. It's also really impressive from all three of you just to see how much you guys have grown and been able to withstand this pandemic. So I'm going to actually follow David's lead there. What challenges did you all face during the pandemic? David alluded to it, and some of you alluded to some of the government assistance. If so, if you had it, could you be specific on what assistance you got? What you recommend for any entrepreneurs out there if they are still in any financial assistance situation? And then, yeah, just give us a brief overview. Let's start with Lydia, and then we'll start different order.
I really want to focus today's discussion on hope and opportunity and silver lining. I would say right at the beginning of this pandemic, while all the restaurants were forced to be shutting down, our restaurant was actually open the whole time. That really focused on, it's very important for us to keep all of our kitchen staff on board, because we know that when it's time to bounce back, we need them for their support. What we ended up doing is pivoted to add to supply the need when the families need to stay at home, do working from home, homeschooling. How do we feed them 3 meals a day because they're still eating? So we ended up doing a lot of community drop-offs. Those are 4 times delivery, menu change every time in the state of Virginia and Maryland. Through that, we were also able to realize in Howard County, Columbia, Maryland, there is a large community need, which also lead up to the opening of our Columbia location this year, January 2023. Besides that, I also want to say we opened up Ni Hao in Baltimore in July 2020. It was a business open for carry-out only. The first opening weekend, we were running out of the signature Peter Chan Peking duck. For anyone that loves to eat, foodies, you know, it's a horrible problem for both the business and the customers. So I remember on the spot, we offered a lot of free duck coupons in hope to keep the good faith to maintain the business, but also having those customers coming back to us. I think, yeah, for the discussion, I really want to spread the joy where we really see the opportunities when it's a challenging time.
So I know you asked about the government assistance. So the government was phenomenal for us. We were able to leverage the IDL loans and the PPP loans. Came at such a beautiful time. We didn't want to let go of our management team, and we didn't want to let go of our teams in general. And this was a huge, huge piece. We have many of our team members that celebrate 15-year anniversaries, and we've been in business for about 18 years. So that is a very powerful thing for us. We also have some people who had started from day one, went away somewhere else, and came back. We owe them something. We stepped up our appreciation and gratitude with formal processes over the last couple of years. We shut down Chula on all major holidays. That's the stance that we took right after COVID. How do we make this a joy? Why should only non-restaurant fields have that kind of a joy? So we took some bold steps, and we found that people come back in droves. It doesn't matter if you're shut down the operations for 6 days a year, extra days a year. It gives joys to the family, and people are looking forward to coming back next as guests. So those were some of the processes that we put in place.
Yeah, I have to echo on that. I mean, PPP and EIDL loans were the first time, at least in my short journey of the 8 years in the restaurant space, to really get assistance from government. I think maybe growing up as an Asian American immigrant, we don't really like to ask for help, and that's just in our culture. If we can solve the problem internally, we try to solve that problem. This is the first time we realize how amazing it is to be in America and to be a small business owner, and to first time to, you know, the RF, to get assistance in that way. I think without that assistance, we wouldn't be around. At the time, during COVID, when we started, we had 3 open locations, and we actually built more locations during then. So it was very challenging to have closures, and while we're expanding. So that was a huge assistance on that end. I would say now is a great opportunity to, during a downturn in the macro market or volatility in the macro market, to actually expand. You have better deals with landlords for retail businesses. So that's something that we are actively doing and taking on those downturns and turning it into opportunity, like what Lydia said. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I want to give a quick shout out to, obviously, even though I am on the board of ACE, there's a statistic that there's over $8 billion of federal aid that was actually given out, but only Asian Americans only got 7.7 billion. So if you do the math, even if we are a disproportionate amount of small businesses, we actually did not go after a lot of these programs that our panelists were able to get. So I think that highlights a little bit of the disparity and inequity that is built into the system, sometimes because of language, sometimes there's just not enough of these last mile programs out there. So for those out there who are interested, obviously that's why we're having an event such as this. If you're interested in the future, there's plenty of resources on all over, including National ACE, to kind of reach out to learn more. So let's get to some of the well-known entrepreneur questions. It's kind of my favorite stuff. We know that disproportionately, Asian Americans build small businesses. So there's a lot of people who are here who are in the middle. They started something, but in the middle of scaling. So what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs or just emerging entrepreneurs, young and old, young at heart, and so that you could scale? Is there anything any examples that you had that actually would provide color on how you're able to scale and expand? So let's start with David.
Sure. I think there are two main things I want to share in any industry that you can apply to in your field. One is breaking the frontier. What we like to do, I think, is in our field in food and beverage, Asian restaurant owners like to compete with ourselves. And that's a challenge because we always compete on pricing. When I came into the hot pot and barbecue space, there are already hot pot restaurants, but they never break the frontier. They're always saying, oh, next door is doing all you can eat for $12. I'm going to do $11.50. And we're going to be in Chinatown. Let's open 20 bubble tea concepts, right? Like, we'll all open next to each other. And my job and my dream is actually to grow the market size. So we're not competing with each other, fellow other Asian Americans, in our business industry. Rather, we're trying to build a bigger pie. We want to bridge the gap of different cultures. And if you go to our contemporary Asian restaurant concepts, you will see that there are non-Asian Americans there as well. And we make the dining process intuitive so people are not intimidated by their first Korean barbecue or first yakiniku, first hot pot experience. It's like a French dining concept with a tasting menu. So all you have to do is choose your soup base and choose your protein, right? So breaking that frontier, and don't just compete with our own group and see, oh, someone else opened this, let me open it right next to them. And that's how you compete. Because then you will end up with, all parties will end up with, it's a zero-sum game. So we want to expand the market, get new customer group into our food and beverage concepts. And second thing is also with breaking frontiers to utilize technology and do something that maybe the status quo isn't doing. For us, we completely elevated what hot pot experience is, even though our neighbor is doing $12 all you can eat for the past 20 years. With inflation, I don't know how they're doing it, but we're having this $100 per person tasting menu with our own Wagyu that's flown from around the world. We're doing yakiniku experience that can be added to the Michelin Guide recently, right? So we're changing up how people will view Asian or Chinese food or in our culture for years to come. And that's tips that I will have, is to break those frontiers.
I love that. Breaking the frontier, I haven't termed it like that, but that's really what we set out to do as well, is we wanted to create something that hadn't been done before. We have dreams of chula in every corner of the globe, and the food is something that's as good as it's made at home, and it's made of high quality ingredients. You're proud about putting that in your body. That was sort of craveable flavors. These were what we set out to do. But the underlying context was pulling from the future, being that how could we be that global domination, being a force for good while we are doing that, not just a global domination. So pulling from the future is very powerful if you could create that context. Like David mentioned in his case, breaking the frontier is very powerful. The other piece is being willing to fail a lot of times, embracing them as blessings and not looking at them as something that, especially being from India, that's tough. That's what my family has taught me is win, 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 be number one, be the top of your class, and then all of a sudden I have a stream of failures. But then if Edison wasn't willing to fail 999 times, we would not have that beautiful, bulbs that we see up here, right? So it's important for that electricity that failure happened. So out of failure comes magic. So if we keep that in mind, that's very powerful as well. And the third piece is we have reached out throughout our journey to a lot of amazing people, leaders who have gone that path before, and every one of them has been so gracious to respond to us. People are incredibly generous. That's one of the learnings that I found in my journey.
I would say both of my peers have said everything I wanted to say. So just to wrap it up, really keep doing something really special to you. I think our culture always taught us to be the same. I agree with David. When we see somebody else was doing great, why don't we copy that? But my dad would always say, I'm really unique. Our flavor is really unique. Our culture, our heritage is really unique. I want to keep offering the mala Sichuan flavor, and while also, offering the Peking duck experience, the lion's head, offering something that people don't really know about. Keep that specialty going. And second of all, I would say network. It's really important to form the support from the community, but also keep talking to, whenever you go to a bank. For example, today I'm here because of this banker that, has always known what we were doing, but we were never friends. Because of her, I learned about the SBA loan, and because of her, I am sitting here today to share my experience with you guys. Thank you.
So I'm going to follow that up with another entrepreneurial business owner question. Is there anything you would have done differently as you were scaling your business? Is there any, I would say, not telling overly bad sob stories or anything, but are there anything that was just really hard that I think other entrepreneurs and small business owners in the room could relate to?
So I think working on the mindset is something that, we worked always to how do we reach our peak potential, but having a lot more coaches around me early on is something that I would have taken on. It has paid off dividends in many different ways because our minds create stories, and if you change your story, you change your outcomes, right? So that's a very important, powerful piece. So we work very hard as a company to help elevate the mindsets. And it's such a joy to see people who haven't broken through for 14 years working the same job, and suddenly one day they just break through that mindset, and today they are making six figures, right? And so that's the kind of story that gives us joy and keeps me juiced up. Have been in this business, originated in 2003. The concept really got live in 2014. And here we are every day, wake up, I'm not doing a job. This is not something that I have to do. I must do this because this is so much energy for me.
Talking about mistakes and learning lessons, I mean, there's too many. To be frank, I mean, if I were to redo it again, we've signed terrible leases. We didn't know how to do construction. Messed up on construction costs, right? We don't know how to hire the right people to incentivize on a team. I mean, I can go on, run a whole master class on how to run a profitable restaurant group or a restaurant business. So, but I wouldn't say I regret any of these decisions, because to me, this is all learning lessons, and that goes with any industry or any professional career that you guys are doing. I think part of that I've learned is that it's part of a life experience, and it's hard to learn these. I guess having a mentor early on will be something that I could have done to avoid the bitter challenges and failures a little bit sooner. But those experiences have taught us a lot, and knowing how to bounce back from those also have changed my life and my outlook on life, and it's how to enjoy the journey. And to kind of add on, now it's not really not just having energy to do all that, but it's now a responsibility. It's my responsibility to my team, to the investors, to the rest of the community, to our customers, to continue to expand and bridge the cultures. And hopefully through our food, we can all be closer together and have in one way, have less violence, have less problems of Asian hate, because you soon realize like we're all the same. Like all humans are the same. We just have different cultures, different fruit, different music. But at the end of the day, we have all these similar interests, and we all love very similar things and a little different flavors. That's all.
I would say in fantasy, don't work with the family. But no, there's nothing I regret. I would say open up to asking questions. There is always somebody out there that has gone through a similar experience. You can always learn from anyone that walks into the room. So really be open up, raise your voice, and share the experience.
Thank you all for sharing. We're gonna get to questions really soon, and but I just want to kind of cap it all by hearing. I see some themes. Number one, first of all, it's clear that if you're in a room that's an Asian API-centered conference, Native American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander, you're also going to have a room full of foodies. So everybody here is a food. This is a food-centric panel today. I am very aware of that. So I want to kind of end by just saying, you know, whether you're in the food business or you have your own service business or manufacturing, some of us are also in vertically integrated manufacturing, it's a hard time. And scaling, a lot of people don't give credit for scaling a business. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I've always felt that founding and starting a business is actually easier than scaling a business. I think scaling, whether you deal with personnel, technology, infrastructure, accounting, lawyers. I don't like lawyers, but like you have things that come up that you didn't really sign up for when you started a company. And so I just want to say, you know, congrats to all your success, and to continue, hopefully, your success, and to inspire other future entrepreneurs in your communities. So I think we made back good time. So I think we have plenty of time for questions. So let's start with questions. We have 10 minutes for questions. Start right here, and then one in the middle. Or I'll start with the middle, and then we'll come back.
Good morning. Thank you again for taking your time. My name is Daniel Gallion, and I'm coming all the way from Bergen County, New Jersey. My question is specifically, so the town of Montvale has 20% Asians, and the small business Asian American owners account for about 30% of the businesses there. Unfortunately, there is less than 5% actually registered with the Montvale Chamber of Commerce. And my question is really around, how do we, and we talk about, you know, the funding and not reaching out for resources and breaking the frontier, how do we bridge these business owners with the Chamber of Commerce? I myself am a business owner as well. I own a consulting practice in the town of Montvale. And so I'm like one of 3 business owners registered with the Chamber of Commerce, but like my colleagues in Montvale don't want to get involved. Like, how do we increase that partnership?
Well, I am not familiar with your area particularly, but I don't know if there is any kind of tourism bureaus over there. A lot of restaurants particularly tend to be a part of that, and maybe that is a good way of connecting. So you have 2 different places that have common goals. The tourism groups in King of Prussia, for example, we have one location there. They reached out to us, and that's how we became a member of Chamber of Commerce related to that. So that might be one way.
I want to say, probably with a lot of the small business, if they're mom and pops, the business owners are typically working in the restaurants or in the shops. So at the beginning stage, it's probably extremely difficult for them to find the time to join any kind of activities. But if there is a way to channel them through like festivals or events that they're already participating, I would say that's like a win-win situation where you are not taking time away from them, but creating an additional opportunity to network or even generate income. I would say that could be a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think offering value for the members of the Chamber of Commerce would be key, whether it's an advertising agency that you guys partner up with or a wholesale account with the food or vendor, or a financing arm, right, to assist with them so that they know that they can reach out and you guys have value to offer will be key, rather than, I think, as a small business owner mindset, like, hey, what, let's say there's membership due or what it is, like, what am I getting out of this? So I know that from actually on our ad agency side, like they're part of it's called US PAC, and they offer value to small business owners for minority business owners, and they offer them a credit to help them set up all their social media platforms, right? Like things that these small business owners would need, and that's something that you can definitely provide assistance with, and as almost a trial to understand that this is something value we want to give to a new business that's in town.
Yeah, I just add a quick thought on that is not just National ACE, there's a lot that's connected to a lot of Asian Chamber of Commerces in the United States, including the ones in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey, I grew up in Woodbridge, and when we had my parents had a family restaurant, and I think especially 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you didn't really have the community at all. Right now you have the community, we just don't really have the purpose. It's not always aligned. And I think right now, if you guys, especially at what we see successful in different parts of the country, I think about Excel leaders in Jason's group in Arizona. I think about what you see in Los Angeles, where the ABA with Dennis. There's these groups that actually provide a lot of value, whether you're marketing agency, financial services, insurance companies. They all create a community. They have workshops together. They get corporate sponsors who have a local regional budget. There's a lot of these things that you could do to kind of create that value. I do agree with David, and it's what's in it for me, WIFM. So we're all business people here, a lot of people. So WIFM, what's in it for me is it comes up a lot. It sounds a little bit transactional, but you have to figure out, like, if you're going to spend time, everybody's really busy. Well, what am I going to get by offering my time here? So thanks for the question. Oh, we'll have another question here.
Aloha, my name's Ho'ala Greavy. I'm from Hawaii, but I started a tech company. We weren't taken seriously, moved the company to San Francisco 2015. In the past 60 days, both my personal account and our company's checking account have become customers of JP Morgan. First Republic Bank collapsed, that was my personal money. We used to do business with SVB, we moved banks, but our investors advised us to set up an account with a safe bank. Do you have any concerns around the concentration of capital that you've been allocating to large, too-big-to-fail banks, perhaps losing personalization, personal relationships with your bankers? I'm very surprised FRB collapsed over the weekend. Coming from San Francisco, that was a highly reputable bank.
Actually, that's a great point. Ever since that Silicon Valley Bank happened, we have been really concerned about it as well. So we do bank with two different banks. They are FDIC insured, only goes so far, right? That's nothing. And that's right. So that is definitely a concern, and we are actually working through our own ways of how do we protect ourselves on it. So I don't have a good answer yet from my end, but we do split things so that we're not in one place, and having relationships. We are very, very close with our bankers, our lawyers, and our accountants. I know you mentioned lawyers. I think those are three key relationships we have found very important as we grow. But that definitely is on my mind as well.
Well, I'm a client for both Bank of America and Chase Morgan. So I would say stick to the major banks until we figure out what's going on.
Our theory on this is the same. We've been with JP Morgan, not sponsored by them, but JP Morgan for the past 10 years since we're at one location. I would say this is our mindset and our take on your question. If JP Morgan fails, I mean, we got a bigger problem on hand. I don't think we're worrying about how the banking system will work. I think the entire U.S. will be in trouble in every area, right? So that is my take on the banking problem, and we use JP Morgan at the moment. So
I think the word is diversify. So, we have 1 minute left. Do you have any final thoughts? Let's get one question if we can maybe get this quick.
Hi.
Hello.
My name's Julie Wong, and I'm here with the Department of Labor Asia Pacific American Council. I've worked at both Commerce and Labor. You are the unicorns. We keep trying to reach out to AA and NHPI entrepreneurs. It's been difficult. Even through COVID, we didn't get a big response of engagement from, I mean, you just look at 10% of the businesses, most of them in hospitality, hit hard by COVID. That's 50% of all businesses owned by community of color members. From the range of the family businesses that went out of business to what you're trying to do and scale up. I heard Lydia say the bank introduced you to the government. What can we do to make it less of a, I'm embarrassed to have to ask for help, and more of a, we can grow our business that's good for our economy and that's good for our AA and NHPI communities?
So really, network could be coming from the people that you work with, but also the people that are working for us. So when I think about what the business really deals with, how do we sustain our staff, and how do we make sure that we have enough resource, we have enough business profits to keep them on board. That really, drives me to talk to different people every day, from vendors, from business investor opportunities. There is the internal drive that I want to live up to the expectation. There's a lot of accountability going on, but also how do I create something on a larger level for the community? And when I share my struggle or talk to this auntie, I would call now, as a relationship banker, I talk to her about what we are trying to do about the future. How do we want to grow the business? And that's how I got to know about the SBA loans. And, it took us a while to get that finalized, but it's all worth it.
Sorry, I just wanted to say what an honor it has been to be on this panel, and the audience, thank you for listening. I was wondering what is it that we would share today, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and thank you, Andrew.
Well, I just wanted to be mindful of time, so thank you all for staying here and listening to us talk. If you want to follow any of us, I don't know how they can find you all. You can Google us, or I don't even know, LinkedIn, plenty of articles. So thank you for your time. Hopefully, I think I have to say something about lunch, right? So lunch is right after this. So we're between you and lunch, which is always the hardest gig. So it's in the Great Hall George Student Center. So it's in the same building. So lunch is right downstairs. So I want to make sure you guys all get lunch. Some of us will be around if you want to say hi. So thanks for your time.